Now we want to bring in Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker, who's been in the courtroom for every minute of this trial. And Ken, want to ask you, what do you feel has been most notable from testimony we've heard so far?
Well, I think what's the interesting thing is the difference between the experts. The prosecution experts said that there's no way Christopher Schurr should have given chase to Lyoya at all, should have let him go, get a warrant, arrest him later. They basically said that he improper use of the taser, he used it in too close quarters. And then there's a question of whether that taser was dangerous or not at the time of the shooting, and whether Lyoya could gain access or, could use it to harm the officer. But the defense has countered with their own experts, as you just said. Right. Some police captains. Matter of fact, 3 of them actually took part in training Officer Schurr. And they're basically saying that, he did everything right, and that the shooting was not unreasonable, that the taser could have been dangerous still, that Lyoya had gotten it in his right hand, and, it could be used against the officer. So, they say he did everything right.
Right, and I think it's interesting too, those first experts we heard from on the prosecution side were using kind of national, generally accepted practices versus the Grand Rapids police officers who were brought on focused on, GRPD policy specifically. So kind of interesting to see how those are compared and how they contrast.
And the defense was going after those prosecution witnesses saying, these are, a guy from South Carolina, another guy from outside the state. What do you know about Michigan law and Grand Rapids policies, which they didn't know. But the prosecution went after the Grand Rapids police, one of the captains who said something about foot pursuit, and we encouraged them, to effect an arrest. Yeah. And then the prosecutor made a point of saying, you don't have a foot pursuit policy. Right. So.
Yeah, very interesting to see those contrasting opinions. Well, another thing I want to talk about, so we know it's a second-degree murder charge. What do you think, what is the potential for lesser charges, have you heard from the prosecutor?
Well, I spoke with the prosecutor just briefly, a text message basically, about the possibility of a lesser included offense. And that has not been settled. That's something that the judge would have to decide during jury instructions. I mean, the possibility of, who knows, maybe manslaughter instead of second-degree murder, which has a much, lesser sentence.
Let's talk about the potential of Chris Schurr himself taking the stand. What is that looking like?
Well, what's interesting is nobody can testify about his state of mind. I mean, everyone's saying a reasonable officer, from GRPD is saying, a reasonable officer under these conditions would be afraid for their life. But they don't know, they can't say what Christopher Schurr was thinking. Right. He's the only one who can do that. So I've asked the defense attorney, and he said it's something they're considering. And then I think it was yesterday he said that's the million-dollar question, whether he will testify.
And that will probably be kind of a last-minute decision, I would imagine.
I would think so.
Okay, all right. Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker, thanks so much for being here with us and for covering all of this all week. It's been a lot of testimony to listen to and keep up on. You can stay with us for continuing coverage of the trial from start to finish. We will monitor all the latest developments as they come into the newsroom, both on air and online at woodtv.com.